The insane Roman training system. The Roman Empire was one of the most powerful empires in world history, and a significant contributor to its achievements was the might of its armed forces. Roman soldiers had to go through strenuous training that was notorious for its level of intensity and violence in order to preserve their physical prowess. The Roman army had a rigorous training program that was meant to prepare its members for the severe conditions they would face in battle, and it was not for the faint of heart. The Roman troops were required to go through rigorous physical training, which included activities such as sprinting, jumping, punching, and wrestling. In addition to that, they had to train in swordplay and other martial abilities. In order to more accurately prepare the trainees for the realities of combat, the training was frequently carried out while fully clad and under adverse environmental circumstances. The soldiers' training to fight with both hands resulted in a greater degree of flexibility for them in warfare. They were also instructed in the use of a variety of weaponry, including spears, javelins, and arrows, among others. Diet and exercise routines that were extremely regimented had to be followed by Roman troops at all times. During their training, they were required to follow a diet that was high in protein and low in fat, and they were prohibited from eating meat or drinking wine at any time. Also, the troops were required to go through routine medical examinations. Any who were deemed to be unable to perform their duties were kicked out of the army. The ludi was harsh and lethal gladiatorial games that were a feature of the Roman training system. This was perhaps the most infamous aspect of the Roman training system. These contests were frequently staged at the Colosseum, and they featured battles between trained gladiators who faced off against each other, as well as against wild animals. Gladiators were typically slaves, prisoners of war, or convicted criminals, and their training was quite similar to that of Roman soldiers. Gladiators fought in arenas known as colosseums. Not only did the Roman training system emphasize physical strength and combat skills, but it also emphasized obedience and self-control among its trainees. The soldiers were under the obligation to follow the commands to the letter, and any disobedience was met with severe consequences. The punishments included lashings, incarceration, and even the death penalty in some cases. The Roman military had a particularly tough and insanity-inducing training regimen for its soldiers, which was intended to better prepare them for the rigors of combat. It was a system that demanded self-control, obedience, and physical prowess from its participants. The training was obviously effective in generating soldiers who were proficient in battle, yet the system was frequently criticized for its brutality and inhumanity, despite the fact that it was certainly effective in producing soldiers who were skilled in combat. What kind of training did they give their soldiers? Roman military education consisted of two primary stages: the basic training phase, which was followed by the advanced training stage. The primary goals of the preliminary training were to develop the participants' physical and mental stamina, as well as their discipline and fundamental fighting abilities. The advanced training emphasized developing the soldiers' ability to work together as a unit and polishing their specialized skills. In the first stages of training, recruits were put through strenuous physical conditioning that included activities like marching, running, swimming, and completing obstacle courses. The soldiers also received training in hand-to-hand fighting, including boxing, wrestling, and judo, among other similar sports. The recruits were instructed in the use of a wide variety of weapons during their training, including swords, spears, javelins, and bows. They were also instructed in military strategy, tactics, and discipline during their training. After a soldier has finished the basic training, they are placed in a unit and continue their education by participating in advanced training. This training focuses on the development of specialized talents such as archery, siege warfare, or cavalry tactics. The soldiers receive their training in these specialized abilities as a unit, with an emphasis placed on working together effectively and coordinating their efforts. Training in leadership, engineering, and logistics was also a part of the Roman soldiers' curriculum, in addition to their regular drills in battle and physical fitness. They were instructed in the management of supply chains and logistical activities, as well as the construction of fortifications, bridges, and roadways. In addition, the Roman army had a highly organized system of promotions and awards for its soldiers. Troops who distinguished themselves via acts of extraordinary valor, leadership, or competence were advanced in rank and given additional responsibilities. In addition, as a thank you for their service, the troops received incentives such as money and land. In ancient Rome, boys as young as 7 years old were groomed to become future soldiers, and this preparation for the army began at an extremely young age. The practice was known as paideia, and it played a significant role in both Roman society and the culture of the Roman military. Young boys as young as 12 were required to participate in a program known as ludus, which provided them with both physical and mental training in order to get them ready for military service. At the school known as the ludus, young men received rudimentary education in the forms of reading, writing, and mathematics, in addition to rigorous physical training in the forms of running, wrestling, and javelin throwing. As the young men advanced through the ludus, the training they received grew increasingly specialized, with an emphasis placed on military strategy and fighting abilities. They were taught how to wield a variety of weapons, such as swords, spears, and arrows, as well as how to employ them effectively in combat. In addition, the boys were instructed in discipline, obedience, and teamwork, all of which are important characteristics for a soldier to possess. When a boy reaches the age of 16, he is legally considered an adult and is therefore able to serve in the military. They would participate in extra training, which would include more advanced forms of warfare and other military techniques. They would also be instructed in the importance of showing allegiance to their commanders and obeying their orders. After the young men had finished their initial training, they were each given a legion to which they would be sent to continue their duty in the military. They would be required to serve for a period of 25 years, after which they would be eligible for retirement benefits and a land grant as a thank you for their service. In addition to learning how to fight and employ various military strategies, the boys were instructed in the fundamentals of reading, writing, and mathematics. This early instruction was absolutely necessary in order to establish a professional force that was well-disciplined, knowledgeable, and devoted to the nation. It was the responsibility of seasoned military officials who oversaw the training regimen and were in charge of devising and putting into action training plans for both newly enlisted soldiers and veterans of the military. The training consisted of a few different modules, each of which had a certain objective in mind. The following were the key aspects of the training. Physical training. The troops' strength, stamina, and endurance were all areas of emphasis during this phase of their preparation, which was devoted to physical exercise. The training routine for recruits was extremely strenuous and included activities like running, marching, calisthenics, and various other forms of physical activity. Soldiers were instructed in the handling and use of a variety of weapons, including swords, shields, spears, and bows, as part of their physical training, which also included weapon drills, training for combat. This aspect of the training centered on providing the personnel being trained with the knowledge and abilities necessary to properly engage in combat. Training included training in hand-to-hand fighting, training with various types of weapons, and instruction in strategies for attacking and defending against enemy forces. Tactical training. Training that concentrated on teaching soldiers the methods and tactics they would need to successfully carry out their duties on the battlefield was referred to as tactical training. Training includes training in how to organize and coordinate with other soldiers, how to plan and execute attacks and maneuvers, and how to react to a variety of different types of enemy tactics and plans. Training in leadership. This facet of the soldier's education centered on fostering qualities of leadership in the individual. Veterans were typically given leadership roles within their groups, and they were instructed to lead by example, inspire their troops, and make successful judgments even when they were under intense pressure. The training system was very well designed, and each component of the program had distinct objectives and targets to work towards. For the purpose of ensuring that every soldier was up to the requisite standards, they were kept under strict observation, and their progression was meticulously recorded. In addition, training was adapted to meet the requirements of each individual legion. Training regimens were developed to accommodate the disparate capabilities and shortfalls of the several legions, each of which required attention for optimal performance. Certain legions, for instance, relied heavily on their infantry, while others relied more heavily on their cavalry. The training for each legion would reflect these variations, with cavalry-based legions emphasizing horseback riding to a greater extent than infantry-based legions did foot-based tactics. Last but not the least, the Roman training system was highly organized and was created with the intention of producing a fighting force that was very effective. The method was built on a clear set of objectives and goals for each training component, and the training process was overseen by experienced military leaders. Several training regimens were devised to address the distinct strengths and weaknesses of each legion. and the instruction was adapted to meet the specific requirements of each legion. As a direct consequence of this, a professional army that was well-trained, obedient, and extremely successful in combat was produced. Leave your thoughts in the comment section for everyone else to see. Remember to subscribe to this channel for more informative and entertaining videos on the Roman Empire. Thank you for taking the time to watch.